Hello, दोस्तों. Welcome to yet another live stream. And today, as you can see, I have a chessboard in front of me, and we are going to discuss one of the greatest classics that has taken place. You can see on the right, the match is between Paul Morphy versus the Duke Brunswick Count Isward. The year was 1858, and the American chess genius Paul Morphy they came to Europe and took it by storm. He was the guest of Duke Carl of Brunswick, but he just wanted to look at a good show. However, the Duke challenged Paul Morphy and wanted to play chess. Let's go through the game and see how this classic game follows. Paul Morphy was white and the Duke was black. The game started with e4. Now, Morphy has played several games with e4. In fact, out of the first 54 games that he has played, he has opened with e4 in about 48 of them. And we all know Bobby Fischer, the great world champion, has mentioned that e4 is best by test. Black replied with e5. And obviously, you would know, I mean, e5 is one of the most pertinent responses. White responded with knight f3. That attacks the pawn on e5 and brings the pieces to the center. Black responded with d6. This is called the Philidor defense. Now black protects e5, but a better response, at least in the modern era, is considered as knight c6. The reason why this is because d6 does not develop a piece like nc6 and it blocks the dark square bishop that is on f8. Nevertheless, it is still playable and not a bad move. Let me just be clear about that. As soon as Morphy got the opportunity, Morphy played d4. Now knight c6 here would have been good because it, along with defending e5, it also attacks. Along with defending e5, it also attacks d4. d6 does not do that. Here, black made a small mistake. I mean, I would not call it a mistake, but it's an inaccuracy where black plays bishop g4 and obviously there could have been different options. You could have taken e into d4. Knight d7 could have been a good development move. Knight f6 could have been okay as well. Now Morphy took d4 into e5, giving Duke the opportunity whether he should capture the pawn on e5 or play something else. Of course, the Duke was thinking if they capture on d into e5, queen into d8, king into d8, and knight into e5 wins a pawn. They don't want to do that. So first of all, they captured the knight, bishop into f3, queen into f3, and now d into e5. Morphy develops the bishop to c4 with the threat of checkmate on queen into f7 mate. Of course, the Duke was not that beginner and defended with knight f6. However, I mean, this creates a weakness. A better move here could have been to play f7 and queen f6, queen d7, all these moves could have helped as well. Anyway, let's move forward. I'll give a point to ponder for everybody. Right now, white has a very attacking move and a very good move. Can you guess? You can pause the video for a few seconds to try and find out the position. All right, and if you are there and if you have found out the move, which is queen b3, kudos. This move is a double attack. Of course, I mean, if you go to the opening principles, you are said not to move the pieces twice and not to move out the queen too early. But again, I mean, this move creates a double attack. Queen into b7, taking the pawn, attacking the rook, and bishop into f7, again taking the pawn, making the king vulnerable. Now, the duke cannot protect both these weaknesses, so he decides to play queen e7 because probably defending the essential f7 pawn is more important. Of course, if they would have defended the b7 pawn with b6, bishop into f7, king d7, and queen e6 is a checkmate. Here, white plays knight c3. This was considered as a very interesting decision, even when people were analyzing the games years later. Here, white could have got a pawn very easily by queen into b7. It could have given you a pawn, and white would have been a pawn up in a comfortable endgame, good position. Pieces are developed better than that of blacks. But then Paul Morphy was a lover of the initiative, and grinding out a victory with being a pawn up did not really appeal to his romantic chess instincts. Of course, it is important. It's a big learning here that the attacker often has luxury of passing up material in favor of cranking up the pressure. So let's see how the game proceeds. Now, black takes advantage of knight c3 and plays c6 so that the black queen on d7 defends the b7 pawn. It's white to move. The only minor piece that is not developed is the bishop on c1. Morphy develops it with bishop g5, methodically bringing another piece into play and pinning the f6 knight. Look at that. Now, this is how you develop your pieces. Not only the piece get developed, it, it proves to be a multi-purpose move. It pins the f6 knight, it gives you initiative, it opens up the place between your king and rook, and now white has the option to castle king side as well as queen side. Black responded with b5. However, this seems to be a move out of desperation. There was no space for black. All the pieces of white are like attacking down the throat of the white black king. So black needed to do something and they played b5. Can you guess the move here? I'll pause for a few seconds and I'll give you that opportunity. Right, we are back. There could have been several good moves, but if you found out the move that Morphy made, which was knight into b5, kudos. Again, going forward with the principle that if you are attacking, if you have the initiative, don't retreat. And Morphy has just demonstrated once again that initiative is more important than material if you are on the attack. He sacrifices his knight for 2 pawns and a very, very deadly attack, let me tell you. Black captures back the knight, c into b5 and bishop into b5. Well, here I would like to show you a variation where it would have probably been better to play queen b4 check and exchanging the queens. But even then, I mean, once black plays c3, after queen into queen and bishop into queen, the advantage would have been decisive anyway, because then white would not lose a piece and it would be a pawn up with a very, very deadly attack. Anyway, let's move forward. c into b5, bishop into b5 check. uh, there are two ways to defend this check. One of them is king d8 and the other is knight b d7. King d8 is very risky because there is always the risk of queenside castling with check. The king has to move to c file, and obviously the rook lift to from d1 to d3 is deadly. So black plays knight b d7. White anyway goes for the quick queenside castling. The king is moved, again a multi-purpose move. The king is moved to safety. The queenside rook has come to contribute to the attack. And obviously, there was no need to capture on d7 immediately. The pin, the threat of the pin is probably greater than the execution here. Black, to defend the piece, plays rook d8. And this backup was required because the knight was attacked by two pieces. In fact, and the other knight that is defending d7 is anyway pinned by the bishop. I'll give another time and you can decide on what Morphy played. Okay, if you found out the move rook d7, kudos. This is an exchange sacrifice, giving away the rook for the knight. But the reason is that the bishop is the pinning piece here. Okay, taking the knight with the bishop gives you an equal trade, but it removes the pin. Taking with the rook, although gives up the exchange, it does not relieve black of the pin. And obviously the rook on h1 is dying to come into the attack. So let's see how the game moves. Rook into d7, rook into d7, and there comes the other rook d1. This was the only piece which was not participating in the battle. Morphy, realizing that, brings it in the center and hammers d7 again. What a coordination. Now black played queen e6. Now here, if you look at the board and the position, white had already given up a knight for 2 pawns and then gave up the exchange. Black is currently a rook ahead in terms of material. One whole rook ahead. But if you can see the position, he can barely move. The bishop on f8, the rook on h8 is like completely ineffective. And if you really take that into account, probably white is the bishop ahead. The rook is really useless. The bishop on f8 is not really doing much. And quality over quantity is what Paul Morphy preferred. Anyway, queen e6 has been played to trade queens. Morphy here tries to cash in on the pin and plays bishop into d7. Now, there are two moves. One of them is knight into d7, the other is queen d8. Obviously, you don't want to lose material, you'll play knight into d7. Now, here comes the best move of the game. I'll give a good amount of time for you guys. Please pause the video. Please look at the position. Please find out the brilliant move that leads to victory and made this game immortal. Alright. The move that we play here, double exclamation mark, is the brilliant queen sacrifice, queen b8 check. Wow. Black doesn't have a move but to take the queen with the knight, and that leads to rook d8 checkmate. That's it. Morphy delivers checkmate with his two remaining pieces, the rook and the bishop. Black still is a piece ahead. It doesn't matter. In fact, black is a piece as well as a queen ahead. It does not matter. This game is a brilliant demonstration of optimal opening play coordination of the forces in the attack. It took Morphy just 17 moves to commit all his pieces to the attack, and at the end, he could find a combination that had a sacrificial masterpiece. I hope you enjoyed this game and will someday pass it on to other people for learning. Thanks a lot.